James from New York. If WWE was to introduce women's Intercontinental and United States titles, who would you have as the inaugural winners? Well, I don't think they need Intercontinental and U.S. titles for the women. I would start out with a women's Intercontinental title. And if they can strengthen the individual divisions a little bit more, then maybe introduce a U.S. title later on. But if they debuted both, I look at the rosters, I would give it to Ivy Nile. I would give the Intercontinental title to Ivy Nile on Raw. Give her a shot to get over with that. And on SmackDown, I would make Tiffany Stratton the inaugural U.S. champion. Now, if they did it my way, as Sinatra said, I would have Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis come together, and they come to an understanding that we have come up with something very cool that we want to share with all of you, and we are working together for a cross-branded, first ever women's Intercontinental title, or whatever they want to call it. And they have a tournament, and they have talent from both brands, and they have Tiffany Stratton win the entire thing. And then Tiffany would be able to defend that title across both shows. And then, like I said, if that goes well, after a period of time goes by, they could always introduce a U.S. title later on, and then they can keep each one exclusive to their respective brand. But I would not just, come up with two brand new belts and just throw them out there. I think you do one. You have a women's IC, cross-branded, test that out, see how it goes, put it on Tiffany Stratton. You can always come back around later on and say, hey, we're going to introduce a U.S. title now. Matt from New Jersey. Are Edge and Christian the best rivalry from a tag team in history? If not, who do you think it is? Some people suggested the Brothers of Destruction, but they started out as rivals. The Mega Powers were more of an angle than an actual team. DIY was one of the only others that came up that would be in the conversation. What do you think? I think it would have to be Edge and Christian. I mean, who else would it be? They tried it with so many other teams, and it rarely works. I mean, I wouldn't count Undertaker and Kane either. I would not count Bret Hart and Owen Hart because they weren't a team for very long. They only worked as a handful of matches together as partners. I wish I could say Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty went on to have this memorable feud after the Rockers split, but they really didn't. Jannetty's personal problems got in the way of that, or else maybe they would have, but they didn't. It was very underwhelming. Bret Hart and Jim Neidhart, right? One of my all-time favorite teams, the Hart Foundation. They had some matches after Anvil came back in '94. He aligned with Owen, so he was a heel. Bret was a babyface. So we got some Bret Hart, Jim Neidhart matches, but they were all dark matches and house show matches, and nothing ever on TV or on pay-per-view. The Hardy Boys is the other one I think of, and I didn't think it was that good either of the times they tried it. Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit, they were briefly the tag team champions for a few weeks. And then they went out and they had that classic match at the Royal Rumble in 2003, but they weren't a real team like Edge and Christian were. So I would say Edge and Christian. Now you have a feud with Edge and Christian where it has spanned multiple promotions, and you can point to them having multiple great matches together in both companies. But I think what it really illustrates is just how few teams there have been that have split and then went on to have any sort of classic feud. It's hard to come by. Keegan from Mississippi. Which WWE Hall of Fame class would you consider to be the most stacked lineup to be inducted in a single year? For me, I would consider it either 2004 or 2013. What say you? For me, it's either 2004 or 2009. I would lean towards 2004, though. That was when they brought the Hall of Fame back. It was on ice for many years. I think the last induction maybe was 96. And they brought it back in 04. They decided, hey, we can market this. And that was when they just went wild with the inductees. They had so many people that went in that year. They had Harley Race, because I had to look up. I actually, in my head, I thought I remembered everybody, and I left out 3 people. They had Harley Race, Superstar Billy Graham, Big John Studd, Don Morocco, Greg Valentine, Junkyard Dog, Sergeant Slaughter, Tito Santana, Jesse Ventura, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and Pete Rose. Now you look at 2009. 2009 had Stone Cold Steve Austin, Ricky Steamboat, Cowboy Bill Watts, Howard Finkel, Coco Beware, the Funks, and the Von Erichs. Now, the Funks and the Von Erichs going in together, that alone is a pretty strong lineup. Then you throw in Stone Cold, you throw in the Dragon. I love the Fink. Bill Watts obviously made his mark on the industry. And then Coco's in there. But you look at that 2009 class, that's a pretty strong class. But I gotta go with 2004. See, I much preferred the Hall of Fame before they turned it into an arena show. And the Hall of Fame in 2004 was still... I don't remember exactly where it was, what the building was, but it wasn't an arena. It was still like, it was like the last banquet type Hall of Fame that they did. And I much prefer the Hall of Fame ceremonies back then. Plus, Bobby Heenan still has the best Hall of Fame speech I ever saw. Undertaker's TED Talk is close. He's the closest anybody has come to Bobby. But Bobby's is still my favorite. And I tear up every time I come across the clip of him at the end saying he wished Monsoon was still there. It still breaks my heart. Josh in Arlington Heights, Illinois. Have you heard about Hulk Hogan telling the story of the Montreal Screwjob as having occurred at WrestleMania X7, which, as you know, took place in Houston? Yes, years ago. I heard that years ago. He was on some radio show or podcast or whatever it was. Actually, what he said it happened at WrestleMania 16 or 17, and you left out the best part, that Shawn Michaels held down Bret Hart and pinned him and couldn't do anything about it. He got every single detail about that night wrong, from the location to the event title to the actual finish of the match. It's actually awesomely impressive how badly he fucked that up.